Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Photographer Mindset Podcast. I'm your co-host, Seth Macy.
I'm your co-host, Aaron Manis.
I was going to ask, I love how the two of you banter. How long have you known each other for?
Too long.
No, not that long.
Feels like eternity.
4 years? 5?
There's sometimes it's just every week I'm guaranteed to see him. And he's guaranteed to see me, and I can just know he looks at me and goes, "This stupid guy's face again."
I never think that. I've never thought that once.
That was a test. You passed.
Yeah. If anything, it's more of a mirror reflection. Like, I got to hear myself talk more. Like, personally. Okay. But yeah, 5 years, I think almost maybe to the date, honestly. It was probably, so it was 2025, the height of COVID, I think, is when we started really talking. So 2020.
You just connected.
Like we're like married or dating. When did you guys meet? Was it a meet cute?
Yeah, seriously.
We didn't meet in person until someone has that footage, and maybe I have it. And if I do, I'll put it on the YouTube. But
I know who has it.
Hannah, right?
Name's a meet cute because someone recorded it. It was like,
yeah,
hey,
yeah. They're like,
at an airport.
And came out of the car, picked Seth up, literally and figuratively.
Yep.
Big hug, and then it's been history ever since. Yeah. So.
That's the story. Yeah. Somebody has that footage. It's the start of a rom-com for sure. Dalton, thanks for joining us, man. You messaged me. You had listened to the Chris Burkhardt episode, and then maybe you went back and heard the episode we did about converting free work into paid work, and you ended up in the DMs in a way which I really liked, which was, hey, I feel like I can add more to this conversation. Let me know if you want to pull the trigger on that. And here we are. I love short to the point messages. Have you guys found this, just to go on a tangent right away? Have you found this when you're emailing a pitch or something like that? Just short, sweet. Here's what I want to do. It's polite. It's concise. People are like, sounds good. Let's talk more.
Yeah, I like it if there's like a link to more. Like
Right.
Let me decide if I want to, or when I'm pitching it to somebody, what I've found success with is like pitch like, hey, I'm interested in doing this. Are you interested? If it vibes, here's way more description. Follow that. And then I get a follow-up because they actually can see, but then they can opt out super quick.
Oh, interesting. So you do the long format email, but you give them the opportunity to bail early.
Yeah. Well, so it'll be like I'll have like a pitch deck that I'll make on my website. I host all my pitch decks on my website, and then it'll be a link to the pitch deck, but it'll just be like 2 paragraphs. But I think that comes from a lot of my background is also in journalism. And so it's like the amount of pitches from PR people and all those things like that I get inbound are insane. And then in comparison, I just like learned what not to do from those, and then go from.
Ooh, can you share a couple before we get into the topic I introduced?
Of like bad pitches.
Yeah, what not?
Just like some common denominators that go straight in the trash. Because to my point, I'm not trying to sound like high and mighty here, but we get a lot of pitches for people to be on the show, and that's great. I'm super grateful for that. But sometimes it's like 1,000 words in an email, and I'm like,
yeah, exactly.
I can't. And then there's just communication like yours that comes across. It's, hey, I can fill some gaps. Are you interested? So yeah. I'm interested to know, as you mentioned a background in journalism, you kind of learn what not to do. I like the reverse role model type lessons. I'm just curious, to know it's maybe beneficial for people because a lot of listeners here are sending pitches, and it's maybe going to tie in nicely to our elaboration on the turning free work into paid work episode. Some common denominators to look out for. Some things to avoid that will, if you do those things, will increase your likelihood of an email going straight in the garbage, which would suck.
Yeah. I would say subject line really matters, but not like, make it so that it's some sort of like what you would title a story, or like, something in that manner. Or like, actually the one that I've been getting the best outreach with because I have a new project I'm pitching is simply just like photographer intro - my name. And then it's truly like, hey, I think it's like 2 paragraphs. It's like, hey, I'm not trying to sell you anything. this is who I am. I'm just here to talk. This is how I like to like bring new potential clients on board, is like I do these random projects like 3-4 times a year that are like super low budget for people to buy in. We can see how we'll work together, and then we can choose a bigger project in the future if we want. Here's the link to the new project, or upcoming like easy buy-in project. But I think it's just like establishing like what's the actual intention behind it. That's truthful, not like total lie or whatever, clickbait. And then it's also just like at a certain point, if it's not necessarily personalized, like you can copy and paste a lot. I mean, that's what PR people do all the time to journalists, is it they just send it out on a newsletter. But it's like making it slightly personal. Like, like I just received an email back from somebody from Garmin, and I was like, yo, crazy name. Like, hey, whatever, like parentheses, like crazy name. Cause it was a crazy name to me.
Yeah.
And then went into it, and the person responded like within a couple minutes,
Really cool.
And so I think it's just like any way that it can be personal, kind of make it personal, even though you're still copy and pasting. I think that's one way to do it. Yeah.
It's funny you say that. A couple, just to jump in, people might laugh this. I don't know if I've shared this on the show. I was pitching a guy a few years ago, and I was doing some research, and I found out that he could read wingdings. Do you two know what wingdings is?
Yeah.
No. But I've heard, somebody's like, oh, you're a wingding, but I don't know what that actually is.
Yeah. It's like one of the wacky fonts in Microsoft Office.
No, that's where it came
It's
from.
kind of like hieroglyphics.
Yeah, it's like hieroglyphics. When you press a thing or a combination of certain letters makes it's like that. I found out this guy was fluent in wingdings, so I wrote my entire email in wingdings.
So yeah, I mean that'd be exactly it.
He answered.
Yeah, 100%. He's for sure here.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great one.
So I think I'd say that's for sure like something to do. Like what not to do is like send a 10,000 word deal. I mean, honestly, no one really cares who you are in cold emails, cold pitches. So like you don't really need to say who you are. Like just say like, hey, I'm Dalton Johnson. Like hyperlink your name to your portfolio, and then just like go into what you're saying. Why is it applied to them? If you want to talk about yourself, like talk about yourself, but that does nothing. Like they don't care. But, like I think that's like a big one. Like PR people. This is going to sound like it's a PR podcast but like PR people, like when they pitch you, like this is the next best hotel, you should come visit, and like this is the reason why it's so great. You're like, cool. Like I don't care. Like tell me more of like how does that apply to like my niche of like adventure travel. If, like the Four Seasons opened up in Malibu, like sure there's surfing, but how does it apply to adventure travel?
Right. Hey Dalton, I saw you did this project. I feel like you'd be a really good fit for this.
Yeah, that would exactly.
Yeah. It's almost like the more I get the sense, the more you write, strictly just in terms of word quantity, the more you're trying to convince people of you. And people, I feel like at their core don't want to be sold.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I had one photographer during COVID that was just like reaching out to photographers like, hey, just talking. And he was like a really successful commercial photographer in the fishing space. And I was like, what has been like just like a key to success for you? And his answer was like, only ask questions they'll say yes to, because then they get accustomed to saying yes to you. And then you ask them a question that's like a harder question, but you've already like made them want to say yes to you. So then they just kind of already are like, oh yeah, sure.
Right.
That's interesting.
So that is interesting. I'm sitting here thinking about how can I structure a question that is impossible to say no to. That's a good thought experiment.
Yeah. Do you want your business to do better next quarter? Do you like engaging?
It just turns into an infomercial.
Yeah. Also, I found, if I get wordy, it's honestly harder to edit yourself and like look it over and not kind of lose concentration and focus and have typos and like you were saying, copying and paste, like leaving in the wrong company in one line by accident. Like I can't say I've never done that before ever. But yeah, that kind of stuff. If it's short and to the point, it's much easier to make sure it's okay. That's a good 2 sentences. right? Like that's how I
Yeah.
want it. That's all I need to tell them. I don't need to waste my time especially if it's going to be a no. Like, let's just get to the point. If they're interested, they'll click to see more.
I like it.
Yeah. I also try to give people permission as much as often to like skip a section. So like if I know I'm gonna like dive in, like I just did this with a client that I'm working with. They're like they've never done a mood board. I'm like the first photographer they said they're the first real photographer we've ever hired. And so I was like explaining a mood board to them. And then I was like, this is going to explain how to build a mood board. Skip if you want, and then it was like 2 sections or like a paragraph and a half of like how to build a mood board to send to me.
Yeah.
And so like when they're reading, they just know like they're like, I already know, and they just can skip it. So
that's important. I've been doing that a lot recently. Because you have, as photographers and creators, we have this tendency, we want to explain things to business owners that we feel like they may not know, right? We got to explain it all. I got to explain how the licensing works. I got to explain how a mood board works, etc. But you run the risk of A, just crafting something that's too long, and B, explaining something to somebody that they already know, which is frustrating we all know when somebody's explaining something to us that we already know. It's like, yeah, I know, man. So I've gotten in the habit of saying before I give information, I preface it with, forgive me if you already know this. Or I say, are you familiar with? That's the second one is probably more pertainable to Zoom calls because you can't really ask that in an email. But I think it's a nice acknowledgement. So let's move on. I like that. That good little 10, 12 minute session on how to get to the point. So why don't we get to the point about sort of the episode, which was building off of the episode we did on turning free work into paid work. And you kind of mentioned that it's not necessarily a point A to point B process. It's not, I do enough free work so that I now do paid work. You mentioned this before we pressed record. Let me just clarify that. You mentioned it as sort of a circular process that just never ends based on specific campaigns that you're trying to do. Correct me if I'm wrong. Help me better articulate that. And I give you the mic. Go for it.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for that. And thanks for the opportunity just to hop in and talk here. Should have said that.
Of course.
But yeah, so the way I see it, there's kind of like, you can call it 4 or 5 stages, but it essentially starts with you have an idea, then you build a body of work, and then you learn to market it or sell it, and then you learn to market it or sell it, and then it repeats. And the way that slightly different is based off of if it's a paid gig or personal work. And so really what I felt you all kind of talked about in that first one is essentially like, it seemed like it was all you had to do was a couple of shoots, maybe free, and then you'd be fine. And so I think you guys leaned on food and weddings a decent amount. And I think where, I've never shot weddings. I've shot food a little bit, or really early on in my career out of pure necessity of like, I don't want to go hungry. But I think there's like the importance of understanding, like, if you're moving to a new industry or you're moving to a different part of the industry or you want to be known for something, you have to always build a new body of work for that. So like, to give kind of some examples, I'm in the adventure travel space. I started purely as climbing and surfing. Like that's all I shot. And so I had a climbing portfolio and a surfing portfolio. And so I'd go out and in the beginning, I would build a body of work by photographing with friends for free. We're just all doing that. Then you build a body of work, you eventually learn how to market that work. And then at that point, because you've already shot it, you would then sell it by licensing. And like, that's where, yes, it was free in the beginning, but now you're going to make money from it. And then the other model is like during that marketing portion of it, now maybe a company's coming to you and they're like, hey, we love your surf work. Now we want you to shoot a campaign for us, but you've never, like your photos don't show that you know how to shoot a wetsuit because it's like a different ask than like, can you shoot surfing? It's like, can you shoot the product of wetsuit? And you're like, oh, so then now you may have to go find a friend, shoot a couple spec pieces specifically looking at wetsuits, and then move and then start marketing that, hey, I can shoot wetsuits. And then all of a sudden you have O'Neill, Rip Curl, all these people like, hey, they can shoot the wetsuit too. So then now you move into like shooting catalogs and things of that sort. And so it's kind of like that cycle. And so I think that is where there's like a big difference. And so I'm going to give kind of one more example, and then we can kind of start diving in instead of 10,000 feet. So another example might be like, once I established myself long enough, I moved into the, like actually more on the travel side. And, the travel industry is like a wildly, you say travel and it's so big, of an industry, but like I've kind of found my niche within like shooting like expedition cruise ships. And so it's like, I essentially shot one free campaign, but it was an editorial piece for a magazine. So it was like a writing assignment, but I brought my camera and photographed it solely by myself. And then, so I built that body of work. And then now that's turned into the ability to market that work out. And it's landed me a bunch of new clients in the cruise ship aspect. And I think I'm like at like 6 or 7 cruise ships at this point. And then now it's like I'm slowly moving into not just expedition ships, but into all cruise ships. And so it's like they saw the work as expedition. So it's like only expedition ships. And then last year I did my first like Clipper cruise or Star Clippers. And that's just like they have sails. So it's slightly still on the adventure side, but it's not like you're going out really doing anything like kayaking in Antarctica or anything like that. It's just like we went to Greek islands, you know? And so, but then now I'm getting inbound messages about like a river cruise, things like that. And so I think that's kind of the cycle. And I'd love to kind of like dive in to what that actually means and looks like for people.
By all means, continue.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
I'm interested. I'm taking notes.
We'll save our questions for the end.
Yeah.
And so I think really where it starts is like, if you're new, it's like going and shooting for fun because you love it to find out what you want. But the entire time, it's like learning how to create a photo shoot, you know? And so, because that's like the skill, like a lot of people are good with already taking a photo, but it's like, can you find the talent? Can you do these things? And like the soft skills of like how to create a photo shoot are really important and are like the necessities. And so when you get like a client to come in and ask you like, hey, we want you to do this work, you're like, yes, but then you might be scared because you don't know how to do any of the things. Like you may price it wrong because you've never actually like gotten people together. You've never done those things. And so that's where it's important to be able to figure out how and what to move forward into that cycle and move from where you're shooting stuff for free to then hopefully license it to getting the actual shoots to become somebody paying you upfront to then land the shoot and then execute and deliver upon that.
Right.
So I feel like I talked a lot. So.
Yeah, we'll jump in with questions so you can make sure you have enough O2 for the rest of the conversation.
Yeah. Breathe. Get that wetsuit on.
So I think I think the free work process is painful or frustrating for people if you suck at the next step, which is marketing the body of work.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
If you've made the body of work for free and then you do 10 more cruise ships in your example, you're not crying yourself to sleep over the free work you did. That's an incredible return on time invested.
Right.
Where you're getting frustrated, and I think where most people are getting frustrated and hung up on free work, especially if you're a beginner, is what the hell do I do with this now? And I'm out my time without a paycheck. So the question, and this is where I guess we can dive in, as you say, what does learning to market that body of work look like as a beginner, as an intermediate?
Yeah. Also, Seth, if I could, I think there's a second part to that where it's the free work is polishing up your own portfolio and work. And there's sometimes I think through messaging and social media, and photographers are taken advantage of, never work for free. You don't know what this is worth to the company. All that stuff has its place and is true, but there's a little bit of an entitlement that comes with like, I've never shot wetsuits before, but you should be paying me. And
Right.
then they pay. Let's say they pay 10 grand and you realize, holy crap, the light off of these wetsuits is difficult. I don't love this batch. I don't really know what I'm doing. I ruined my camera in the ocean halfway through. Like all those things. And then the company has a bad taste in their mouth with like trusting someone without proof of work. So I think there's an entitlement too of like, well, I'm not doing this for free, so I'm not going to do it, before they have even tried the subject matter or created a portfolio where then they can sell it. I think any company outside of photography, landscaping, house building, guitar building, there's no one that's like not build a guitar that you're going to spend $5,000 for them to build you an acoustic for the first time because they think they can do it. Right? There's no one that you would trust with that. So there has to be niche specific proof that you know what you're doing. And that's the value in the free work of like building a relationship potentially with someone, or selling it even on the back end with licensing if you really nailed it out of the park. But also being like, the value here to do this free work is to hone my craft so that I can prove to people, yeah, I can do this easy. Look at this example of exactly what you want. Let's go do that again.
So you remove the frustration if you're clear with the intent of the time spent.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you both think that content online that speaks about never do free work, you're worth more, is that an epidemic? Is that a negative thing that people shouldn't necessarily hear? Is it putting the wrong ideas in their head? Is it maybe, I don't know. I'm curious to hear what you guys think, because if you really consume that kind of content all the time, you may never get your foot in the door. It's like a server trying to get serving experience, right? If you've never served, that classic conundrum.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to hear what you guys think on that. And then we'll get into what does the learning to market the body of work look like from Dalton.
Go. Aaron, do you want to go, or because I have a take?
I do too, but go ahead. You're the guest. After you.
Yeah. So I would say for me, I think it is bad that people say you shouldn't work for free. I think you should work for free, but I think if you're working for free, you shouldn't be working for free in the sense that like a company has come to you, asked you to do something, and now you're delivering things for free. Like it needs to be like, if you're going to do something for free, it's because you're building a body of work. You are, utilizing it because you see this as an opportunity. I know you all talked about bartering in terms of like getting a pair of skis. I kind of disagree with that unless they're on the value of their product at 25% what it is. And the reason why is that's like the resale value of most things. And then also like it costs you things to kind of go from there. And so I really don't think if somebody is asking you to do the work, at that point you should be doing things for free. But if you personally are doing it to improve your book or to improve your skill set, at that point, I do think you should be doing free work all the time. And that's why I say it's kind of like a cycle, is because that's kind of the process that you have to be doing all the way through. Even if you're, I guarantee you, Chris Burkhardt is doing free work. It just looks different. Like, I think he talked about on your guys' podcast, I think he talked about the film. Like he's making those films out of his own pocket, which is essentially quote unquote free work that he is then hoping to make money from. And so that's like the business model, because it comes like, cool, clients aren't coming on board, which like they might, he probably has sponsorships for those films, things of that sort. But it's like you're moving the needle forward by doing the free work, which is investing in yourself, is like really what it is.
Yeah, I think in that example, he was making the film at maybe cost, and then hoping to make the profit on the tour. And from Apple TV, there was no, here's a cash advance to make The Forgotten Coast.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that, and I love that if companies are reaching out to you because of your work, essentially, whether it's related or not, you have the ball in your court, I would say, and really should be valued for your time and effort and the return on investment that marketing could potentially do for them. I think it niche specific. For example, in the cabin industry of photographing Airbnbs, there's a lot of people that love to go to Airbnbs for free because it helps with vacation costs and whatnot. And I have done that as well because it is a lucrative value to reach out easily if I'm going to California and find 10 Airbnbs and just sort of trade my barter versus pay $3,000 for 5 nights there. Saves me and allows me to do that trip because of a skill that I have, and it's not in my territory in a sense. That can get out of hand in that industry where they are essentially making a ton of profit, maybe all their profit, on the marketing and social media campaigns that photographers that stay at their places are putting out there and make their places look extremely attractive. So when they're asking you to do it for free or just to trade, that's where it's a little bit offensive, because it's like, no, you're coming to me for photography. For what reason? To sell your place for the next however many years? No, it's not going to be for free. So it's kind of like, which I agree totally, Dalton, like what angle is this coming from gives a lot of the power play. Now, if I want a pair of skis or something that it's not my niche, it's not my typical competitive commercial photography, but I really want this pair of skis, but I want to drop $1,500 on boots and skis. And if I can ask them like, hey, I have this skill, you have these skis, maybe I could buy them at cost and I can get you a couple of photos and you can market them. And they're like, yeah, that sounds great. Then to me, it's like, it's a win-win. But I think when you do it all the time and you're losing the value of what you're doing because you're doing that all the time and you're just bartering left and right. I think if you're case specific, to me, I don't have a huge problem in using a skill and trading for something that you truly do desire. When a company calls out and is like, we'll give you a free jacket if you do 40 photos of us and tag us and do 2 posts. And you're like, I already have 10 jackets. I don't need a jacket. That's where it's like, no,
there's a comedy reel right there for you. I'm like buried in jackets by the end.
Yeah, millions of jackets. It's 90 degrees out. I just want to wear them to get the value out of them because
and all the codes pop up.
So yeah, I think there's a place for it, but also, I mean, to add to it, if I say, hey, can I stay at your Airbnb? It's going to help me out tremendously financially for this vacation. I'm not promising my typical paid package. I'm promising like a taste of it. Like you're going to get a taste of some of my photography. Maybe I'm not going to do a drone fly through because that usually garners big bucks. But hey, while I'm here, I could do a drone fly through. That's, you can do like all these little things. But I think being careful with how much you're giving away and what kind of folder you're giving away, because that just sets a precedent for the next time someone comes and really values their own work and wants to get paid for 20 photos. And they're like, yeah, well, Aaron stayed here for free, just a trade. And he gave us 100 photos and 1,700 videos. It dumbs down the whole process. So there's just a little bit of knowledge and like thinking about it before you jump into those scenarios is all that I'm saying.
Well, yeah. Can I ask you a question, Dalton?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I think, Aaron, the key is to define what that transaction looks like, so that you can then make money. So like you may say like, hey, like I'll do that transaction for 5 photos, and then maybe because it's a super rad house, you do that drone fly through, and then you'll be like, hey, like if you make afterwards, maybe you took 70 photos and have, a drone fly through and a couple other things. And you're like, hey, you can pick 10 of these. And then also there's, 40 more plus a drone fly through. If you're interested in buying those, we can license those and have a set duration.
Yeah.
And like, I think that's key because then, you talked about Airbnb's marketing for years. It's like, give them a 1-year license or give them a 2-year license. And then it's like, they have to renew if they want those photos.
Right. Yep.
So, yes, go on with what you're saying.
My question for you is, first of all, I appreciate you saying you disagree with us. That's refreshing. Not that we say the smartest things 100% of the time, but it's just nice when someone says, I don't agree with what you're saying. I like that. So I wanted to address that. Second, when would I want to make sure I understand completely. You mentioned the number 25%. I guess you were talking about like markup or something. I'm not really sure. When does a trade make sense for you?
Well, I want to clarify that too. So if skis costs $1,000, for them, it costs $250. So like that's their cost. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not. Where I'm going with that is like, no, so I shot a lot for Oro Kayak a couple years ago. And they try it. I mean, I don't want to they're not a bad company. The people were great to work with, all of those things. Their argument during the negotiations was that I think they were sending 4 prototypes because we were shooting 4 different types of kayaks. Their argument was that they wanted to offset the cost of the shoot by saying, since we're giving this to you. I was like, one, I don't need them, so you can have them back. I was like, you can have them back. They're like, well, we don't want them back.
Why do I need 4 kayaks?
Yeah.
Let alone 1.
Yeah. I've gone on to shoot a lot for them. And so I think I now have 6 or 7 of them. And so, yeah. But anyways, I was like, look, if that's something of interest, the only thing I could do is resell them because I don't need that many. And so the resale value is roughly 25% of most things. And so like, you look at like, this kayak's $1,000. Realistically, once I go put it out there on Facebook Marketplace, really what I'm going to get is $250, And so, and that's like on the higher side. And so it's just like, that's its value to me is 25%. Like, so I know you say that the value is $1,000, but to me, the value is only $250. And and that's the argument that I have is like, cool. Like, I'm sorry, like that's how I can weight it against what I can do. Cause that's how much I'll get for it.
I guess, does that argument fall through if it's something you intend to keep and really want, or you just always see it as something you're going to potentially have to liquidate or get rid of?
I mean, if it's something I want to keep, like I'll give somebody full value for it.
Right.
Like,
okay.
Fair enough. If I was like, but then I'm also going to charge the industry standard full rate.
Right.
Like, okay, in the outdoor industry, like a single photo for Instagram's like $150. So it's like you're gonna get a one-time use on Instagram, $150, and that's what you're gonna get because like you want to play full price, I'll play full price, and that's just like kind of like the way it goes,
right?
So yeah, I think that's like the key is like because I'll discount based off of like things that it just like I'm like, hey, like this is what it's worth to me, like this is what the value of the photo shoot's worth to you. So
True. Let's get back to that pesky stage where many people maybe are scratching their heads. How do you market the body of work? I guess you mentioned there's 2 avenues you can really go down. You can go down the avenue of I've shot a lot of cool stuff during my personal time as passion projects, and now I want to go and license that awesome imagery to companies that already exist. Or there's the avenue of I have this body of work and I'm hope to dear God that somehow, some way, some company finds it and asks to pay me $1 million for
it. Yeah. I would say like you can throw the like back in the day quotes up. It was a lot easier. Today licensing is getting more challenging, but it still happens. I mean, license some stuff today and had a bigger licensing deal, like $2,500, like a month ago. So like, I mean, licensing still totally happens.
Can you run us through that process?
Yeah. So the one I had today, it was just somebody inbound. They're like, hey, we found your photos. They found them on LinkedIn. And then they're like, I really like your work. I would like to, like, are these available to license? And then it was just like, yes, they're available to license. And it was just like, they're licensing it to put it on their home web page for 6 months.
Now, how are you? I'm going to interrupt because people are sitting here probably asking this question. LinkedIn. Wow. Okay. Are you framing posts on LinkedIn or images on LinkedIn that you're sharing in this example in a way that invites or suggests that they're available for licensing? How are you treating in that instance that social media platform as a bucket or as an inflow for that potential outcome to happen?
Yeah. I think the easiest thing to do would be to slightly back up. I got off of Instagram 2.5 years ago, and I just came back on in February of this year. So I essentially like left the whole Instagram world. Somebody offered to buy my account. I was like, sure, you can buy my account. And so I sold my last account, and now it's like,
Nice.
so all my social platforms that I've been on have been solely focused on like actually building community and like talking with people. So it's like, nothing's like a big number, you know?
Right.
And so it's just like, I'm there to like actually communicate with other people in the industry. And so over on LinkedIn, I just like share work, you know, and it was like, I shared some old road trip photos from, down in like, Valley of Fire area, Lake Mead, that area. And so it was like some old road trip photos that I was actually using to market a new project that comes out or that already came out. And it's just like a road trip project. But the whole, like somebody was just like, I like these photos and they fit and they just like, they're a travel brand. Yeah.
Right.
So it's like they need essentially nondescript, like no logos, things like that, people traveling. So like, that's all it is, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's really the entire, like, that's how they license them. Whereas like, if you look at the other example that I gave that I made $2,500 from, that was like a company that wanted to license images because their product was in it. And so that was like, I shot a video campaign for them. And then they're like, I also shot stills. So I went above and beyond. Stills were not in the contract at all. And it was just like, I'll shoot these stills because I'm here, and it like flows nicely with like the workflow. It doesn't invade the video production, anything like that. Super run and gun production kind of thing. And so then when I delivered the video, I was like, also, I shot some photos. Here they are. If you guys want them, just let me know. And then they're like, yes, we want these photos. They're like, our budget is honestly slashed this year because of the tariffs. And they're like, so like, that's like impacting our business. This is what we can offer. And they're like a longstanding client. And so I was like, yeah, we can do that. But because you're doing a reduced rate, we will reduce the duration that you get to use them. And so it's like, that's where it's all like a negotiation. So instead of like, you know, doing their typical package, which they license stuff for 2 years, digital unlimited, non-exclusive. That's like how they typically license stuff. I think we broke it all the way down to some images were 6 months, some images were 1 year, some of them were like website only. And so it got way more specific than what they usually do. And that's just because to fit their budget, that's what we had to do.
Interesting. Now, when it's that specific with licensing and it's across multiple clients, how are you keeping track of that?
Spreadsheet. I use Notion. And so it's like my Notion, I have the file name, and then from the file name, then it has who it's been licensed to. And then it has the expiration date of that license and whether it's exclusive or not exclusive. And the reason that the exclusivity really matters is because so I just did some tourism work. And so it's exclusive for other DMOs, like tourism bodies within the region. But if I wanted to sell those images as prints or to like Hallmark or to like medical licensing, because medicine right now, or not medicine, but like insurance companies right now are really doing the like, they love the outdoors, and like if you're healthy you can go outdoors is like kind of like the marketing right now. So it's like they just want outdoorsy photos, and it's like super subtle outdoorsy stuff, but they pay a bunch because they put it on a billboard. So like those photos could go to them because that's not a competitor based off of the exclusivity that the tourism board asked for.
Gotcha. But are you scouring the internet to see if there's faults in this? Like, or do you stumble upon it? Have you ever caught something and then had to approach a client and say like, hey, this is what we agreed on. Now you've crossed the line. What's that mean?
Yeah, I've never found it. I found clients themselves are really on top of it. It's people that'll just steal your work in general. And it's actually pretty easy. You just like put your photo into Google and be like, where is this on the internet? And it'll pop up all the places that it shows up. And then you're like, cool. And then you just send out an email to those people and be like, hey, you use this illegally. This is what that license would have cost. I think in terms of legality, you can charge up to 50% additional as like a slap on the wrist, bad boy kind of thing. And then you just like, they may not pay it, but you just send it to their department, their collectibles department or accounting department. Most of them won't pay it, but you just write in there like each month it goes up. I think it's like 5% or something is what you're allowed to do. And then you just sit there, and then it has to cross the threshold, and then you can like actually go to collections and get your money.
Wow.
Like, that's like a very long process for something that like,
yeah, I'm turned off already.
Like,
I'm not doing that.
for the most part, like, do you ever do that? Like, no. Like usually it's like you just send them a new invoice each month, and they see that it's ticking up, and they're like, okay, well, just take it down and send this guy, whatever. And like, that's usually what happens. I actually had one that people were using all my images on blogs. It was like climbing images that they were just using on their blogs. And I just like called them out, and then they were like super nice about it. They're like, hey, sorry, we're a startup. We were trying to just like get around it. And then I ended up writing for them. It was like, So like people are just like, like, hey, we're just scrappy and we're trying to do it. Like, sorry, you caught us, and here's what it is.
Sorry,
like,
you caught us.
I had that exact same thing happen to me with a company. I messaged them just being like, hey, this is, I had done work for this company a while ago, and it was just for socials. And then it ended up being, run as advertisements back end and stuff. And I messaged him being like, this was not the agreement. He was like, hey man, like, so sorry. This was organized by somebody who's no longer at the company. Here's some money. And like, we're on good terms.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I find that's usually what it is. Like, because it's like, if you look at the outdoor industry, pretty much the only companies that actually have an archive company, like have archivists, is like the North Face, Patagonia, like Big Agnes, Cotopaxi. And like, that's about it. Like, and like what I mean by archivists is like people that are actually paying attention and looking at how that licensing is working and where it's going and what, like, essentially that data. And so like they know, and for the most part, that's because those companies allow you to shoot on spec, which kind of brings us all back to that kind of cyclical cycle of like if you're trying to break into the outdoor industry, the easiest thing to do is to shoot spec work, which is like, spec is short for speculation, because you have the speculation that you'll sell the photos. And so you're kind of like, okay, like you go out and you're like, I'll shoot in this, like I'm about to go on an expedition, and you see that most of the gear head to toe is North Face. So then you're like, well, let's use Patagonia. Patagonia is easier. Just because Patagonia has a clear submission, open submissions to everyone that you can just ask for the submission guidelines. So like, if anyone's interested, you can do that. So say you head to toe, you're going out in your own Patagonia clothing. You shoot in the Patagonia style, which is like relatively raw, more the like like side moments, not so much the like we're like sick athletes, but like I mean, their famous photos are like you know, a baby being thrown over a like two rock climbers on one side, baby being thrown over a gap kind of stuff. Like it's like weird things like that are like
that one
seems dangerous.
You should find out who took that and have them on the show.
That person, you can find him pretty easily.
I'm sure.
Yeah. I've listened to a couple of interviews with that person.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. But like, so you would go and shoot that project. And then when you get back, you would edit the images and then you would send them to whoever the editor is. The last time I looked, Patagonia had 4 photo editors. So they move around kind of deal. I started submitting to Jane Sievert in the beginning, and then it moved to Kyle Sparks. And then now I mean, for the most part, I would still submit to Kyle, but it could be somebody else because Jane kind of moved on. But then there's like, they will respond if they're interested in any of those images and be like, hey, we want, or like, usually they put them in an archive. And so they're like, these are the images we're going to archive. And then maybe 6 months later, you just get a message from whoever the archivist is, and they go, we're using this photo in this capacity. Is this still available? Just because they have to double check it didn't get licensed somewhere else. You say yes, and you get a check. And that's like, if you're working with Patagonia on spec, that's kind of how it is. That's
Are you negotiating with those, or with a company that big, or they're like, here's your check, this is what it is?
I guess you could try to negotiate if you want, but they do have a very clear like price list. And like you can negotiate, like, so it's like not with Patagonia, but with Big Agnes. I've shot with them now. I think they might be my most consistent client, going on probably like 8 years or so. And so like they like every year we renegotiate that contract of like what it looks like to shoot a spec piece and submit. Yeah. And that's just like small details that we kind of work out.
Very cool.
In terms, I've never negotiated with Patagonia, but Patagonia also just pays really well. So like I've never been offended by like what Patagonia wanted to pay.
I heard if you negotiate with Patagonia, they murder you.
I heard that too.
Straight up.
We get a defamation lawsuit tomorrow.
As soon as you press send on the email, you hear the door knock.
Oh, there it is.
There it is.
How can people improve their inbound funnel? There's a lot of people sitting around waiting for something good to happen and nothing good happens.
Yeah. So I think in terms of like, once you get that body of work and you start marketing it, you can market via email and via social. I think like if you look at social, the way you're really going to get a company's attention is in the stories. So like you post them on your stories and then you tag them and tag a bunch of people that it applies to. So like in the travel world, if you're traveling, it's like look at the tourism boards and like the clothing that the people have and like what it fits. And so like this is where it takes time of just purely being in the industry, understanding what certain companies look for. And what I mean by that is like I've shot some images that are like Patagonia style images that have no Patagonia clothing in it, and they'll still license it just because it's like it's a Patagonia shot. And so like in that context, like that's what they're looking for. But that's like specific to Patagonia. You know, like a tourism board, they don't want big logos and stuff, but what they want is to showcase the destination. And so like, you know, I think about some work I did for Visit Homer. Visit Homer, for example, like they just looked at the whole thing and they're like, yeah, like you showcased Homer well, you know? And like I was photographing something completely different. And so like we worked out a deal for Visit Homer and that tourism board to be able to get photos into their hands. And so I think that's where it really comes down to like truly like just like reaching out. And that looks like hopping the DMs and just being super honest. Be like, hey, I went out and I shot this piece. I think I have like 2 or 3 good images. You know, there ended up being 40, but here's the 3 best ones. If you want to see all 40, here's a link to the folder, and just if you're interested, let me know. And for the most part, there's probably 3 people in the photo department, marketing department, that would be worthwhile for you to like reach out to those 3, and and send them all the same email. Just swap their names out, because like you never really know, like, does it hit the like, if you're, and then like you're hitting them on an email, you're hitting them on the DM, you're also hitting them on the company DM. And so it's like you have all of those aspects, and then like really be able to get into the companies and start to get your work in front of companies. And like my process is like, I would say I'm reaching out to probably close to 10 companies almost every day.
Wow.
So it's like I spend
300 a month.
Yeah. And so it's just like, it takes time, but like once you get in the flow, I mean, money just starts coming in because you're shooting well. Like the assumption is you're shooting well. If you're not taking good photos, like you'll find out pretty quick.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But like if you're shooting good photos and you're reaching out, like it will work. And the thing is, like, nobody's going to know who you are. And as long as you're not being like a complete pest, they don't care. Like it's their job to receive those emails, to look at it and say yes or no. So it's like, it's not like you're being a nuisance. You're helping them do their job.
Yep.
If you email the wrong person, like you get a VP of brand, like that person is not in charge of like selecting photos. Like they're in charge of budget, And so it's like, you reaching out to the wrong people, 100%, they're going to be like, stop emailing me. Like this you're wasting everyone's time. But like, you're talking to a photo editor, that's their job. They're there to look at photos and go from there.
That's interesting. Seth disappeared for a second. Hopefully he gets back on. The number is interesting. I think that's a good number for people to hear, is the 10 a day. It does take time. It does take effort, and hit rate might be, 1 out of 10. But you compound that. Maybe it's less than that even, but in terms of a month,
it's less.
Yeah, in terms of a month and how much you can actually shoot, edit, deliver without going crazy, you just need a couple of those to hit, and then you potentially have long-term clients. Then those clients have sister brands, like Aura Kayak, like you said. I think Solo Stove, is that under the Solo Stove umbrella?
Yeah, I've worked for Solo Stove as well.
Yeah.
They also have Chubby's and one other company I was spacing on right now.
Yeah. And I started some stuff with Solo Stove a while back, and it did spread to like it was right around the time where they had the umbrella of Chubby's and Aura Kayak, and we did like a whole combined drone thing. And it was very cool because now you have all these connections to all these subsidiary companies. So it is just a numbers game sometimes in getting on out there. I don't know what happened to Seth.
He didn't like us.
He was like, I'm good with this convo. As a Canadian, it's his bedtime at 7 p.m. They go to sleep really early over there. Oh, here he comes. He's coming back. He just had to brush his teeth and wash his face, and now he's ready for bed, so he can come back and close up with us.
Did you guys continue?
Seth, while you were gone,
what happened?
No, Seth, when you disappear, I freeze up and I'm just like, I don't know what to do with my hands. Like, what do we do with my hands? That whole thing. I had no idea. We just sat here in silence.
Oh, really?
No, I finished the thought and the question, and we talked about it just being a numbers game, and it's a good number for people to hear, it being 10 reach outs per day as a goal. That adds up really quickly. The hit rate, he said, is much less than 1 out of 10, but after a while you start to get a couple, and then you get long-term clients. Those clients have clients that they want to work with and have you work with. So it's just a matter of getting out there and reaching out.
Yeah. I'd say in terms of success rate, I listened to a podcast between Alex Stroll and Chris Burkhardt, and they said that they were 1 in 10. is like what their response rate is. And that's response. That's not yes. That's purely a response.
Wow.
My response rate's about 1 in 20, 25. And then conversion rate to a paid client is right about 1 in 100.
Conversion rate to paid client. Okay. So we're reverse engineer that. How many times do you have to reach out to get one paid client?
100 times.
100 times. Oh, that's the total. Okay. I thought of the 1 in 25, then one of those out of 100.
No.
And 1 in 100 is a paid.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So like 1 in 25 responds, like, and they're like, hey, we might be interested, or hey, we love your work, but it's just not the time for us. Or, like I was talking, so I've shot a decent amount of car work, and I was talking with somebody that was like, they're thinking about doing a spec piece for Ford. And I was like, look, like I've worked for Ford. The thing is, if they're interested in a location in a zone, they're interested in it. And then that will move because their marketing focus will move. They'll be like, if they've already shot their surf stuff, they've already shot their surf stuff, and they don't need it again for another like 3 to 5 years. Unless it's like a staple of like hiking and city, like those two, they're going to shoot every year because they need those. But like, it's, like you have to understand, like a company targets an audience and then they live on that for a couple of years. And so, you have to understand, like, if you're shooting something that's already been shot, they're probably not going to shoot it again for at least a couple of years, unless it's the thing that they have to do every year.
Yeah.
So like, that's like mainstays that you would imagine, like best products, things like that. So that's like the difference on that front.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Can we address one thing?
Yeah. We can address as much as you want.
You were the captain of the water polo team at your college?
That came out of left field. Yeah.
You look exactly like a water polo captain if I had to draw one.
Incredible.
I don't know why, but he does.
I mean, I'm surprised up in Canada you even know what water polo is.
I saw it on your LinkedIn.
That's a hard sport.
You're like, this dude just said he got a job from LinkedIn, so I'm going to check out what's going on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So when Seth disappeared, that's really what he was doing. He was like, hey.
Yeah. He was deep diving. His internet got bogged up because he was just so deep into your LinkedIn. Oh, see, it's gone again.
I just switched back. I was on hotspot because I was, the internet cut out for whatever reason, and I went to hotspot and I was delayed, and I wanted to come back to real time and not try and time my delays.
There we go.
Yeah, no, I was on LinkedIn when I was curious. I was typing when you said that earlier in the conversation that you got a licensing deal from LinkedIn, and I scrolled and I creeped and it said water polo captain, and I was like, hell yeah.
It's pretty cool. Seems like a hard game.
I was called an enforcer. So it's like, imagine what you imagine in hockey with enforcer. So like my coach told me, like, he was like, if you could essentially get an assist, like draw a kick out and do one fight every game, I'd be happy. Like that was like my role. And it's a lot of fun. Like you just get to like screw with people the entire time. And just like swim around and and then there's like
a drowning risk in a hockey fight. I'm trying to picture a water polo fight. That's going to be what I'm going to YouTube when I get off here. I'm not going to send 100 emails. I'm going to look at water polo fights.
No, water polo fights are sweet. Yeah, I had a lot of friends playing the Olympics, and if you look at like they show underwater in the Olympics, and it's a constant battle under the water.
Wow.
So, yeah,
that's cool.
That's incredible. I think this is a good place to wrap up. Dalton, that was very informative. I feel like I went to school today. I hope everybody listening went to school and get writing emails.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
Emails, DMs, do it. Like that's what Tess
You just seem like you have your hand in everything. You seem like you're busy. Like there's not a lot of sitting around waiting for good things to happen. I think that's maybe part of the bigger overarching theme of this episode, that you do the body of work, you put in the time. Yeah, people will come to you, but you also can't sit around just expecting that that's going to happen.
I would say all the art buyers are now so flooded with inbound that they're not really reaching out unless you're like Chris.
Yeah.
Like, it's like I've used the same licensing agent as Chris, and she's great. But like, like Chris is so big that he has staffed people, and so like if you're just starting out or something like that, like the whole thing is like you have to become known before somebody can even reach out to you. And that's where it's like, just because you had something go viral doesn't mean you're known. Like when was the last time like you saw an Instagram post that had 5 million views that you're like even remember who that person was 20 minutes later?
Right.
Or it wasn't a comedy bit.
Yeah. Very important point. That's not the way.
Yeah. So Seth, I think you're right. It's just like that's the whole thing is like you just have to keep it up, but like do it so you build your own work that you're stoked to share. Because if you're not sharing, like if you're not stoked to share it and you're just like stoked to like kind of like be doing BS work, then you're not going to like last in the career. And like, you should want to last because it's a fun career that opens lots of doors.
We're going to end on that. That's a hell of a soundbite. Dalton Johnson, ladies and gentlemen. Till next time, guys.
Thank you. Take care.